Welcome to the Outdoor Biz Podcast, where each Tuesday, your host, Rick Sayes, gathers around the mic with outdoor industry entrepreneurs, brand leaders, founders, and enthusiasts to share stories from the backcountry, the startup files, and the retail aisles. Rick's guests offer actionable advice to land your ideal industry gig, grow your outdoor career, or plan your next big adventure. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. And now, here's Rick.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Outdoor Biz Podcast. This afternoon I'm talking with a good friend of mine, Howard Fox. We met through the Outdoor Writers Association of America 2 years ago at the conference in Vermont. We just got back from the conference in Casper, Wyoming, where last year we both won some awards. This year Howard stole the show. He won a bunch of awards. Congratulations on that, and welcome to the show, Howard.
Rick, thanks so much. I appreciate it. And I've got some shoes to fill because you were there last year, and it was just great to see your work. And it's great to be back there again at this year's show with you and just to get to know more about you and what the work you're doing.
Yeah, same. Yeah, it was fun hanging out with you in Casper. That was a cool spot. I love that spot. It was amazing. That night we had up the ski area, what a sunset, right? Ooh.
I'm a sunset and I'm a sunrise kind of guy, and that to me is like worth the price of admission. It's just to seeing that out there. And how can you not be inspired by the being up in the mountains like that? It's beautiful.
Yep, exactly. Yep. And I'm inspired. I see your posts every morning and every evening, your sunsets there in Vegas and sunrises in Vegas. I should get my butt out and do that too. That's awesome.
I love the morning, and especially when it's quiet, and I'll have my cup of coffee. And these days I'll peek outside like around 5 o'clock or 4:30 when the sun is just starting to come up. And if there's clouds in the sky, I'll stay up and make my coffee, and I'll just open up the door and it's like a Juliet balcony. I can't actually go out, but I've got my coffee in my hand. I'm looking at the cloud formations, the sunrise, and I'll take a couple pictures, and then I'll go back to bed. But I love the morning. I just love it.
I'm the same. Yeah, I get up at 5 a.m., do the same thing. And I have no excuse. I could walk out the front door and the Eastern Sierra is right there. So I should start doing that. You inspired me to make an effort to do that.
All right. I want to see those, man.
There you go. Right on. All right. Sounds good. So you have a coaching business. Let's start with talking about that. How were you inspired to begin coaching? I don't know much about your background there.
Yeah, that's a story. I am what I would call a recovering IT business consultant. So much like you were in the products and the marketing and the sales space, I was in the IT consulting space and had been doing that for quite a while with a couple companies. Some of them were very big, and I just reached the point that I was just fed up. It was the same projects, one right after the other. A lot of them started off great, but then they take a nosedive, and you end up having this death march. And I thought, I'm just tired of it. And I woke up, I was up in, where was it? Vancouver, not Vancouver, on Victoria Island, Vancouver Island.
Victoria, okay.
Victoria, yes.
Yeah.
I'm in a hotel in Victoria. I feel like really lousy, very lousy. And I thought, there's just no way I can continue to do this. How can I be in the most beautiful place in the world and be so utterly miserable? And I decided at that point I needed to find another career that made me feel better. And I felt like I was accomplishing something. And so I literally went back to school, and because I had a bachelor's degree and master's degree, which really didn't lead much professionally anywhere. I ended up in IT as a consultant and just decided enough's enough, and I went back to school to become a coach. So I got another master's in organizational leadership, and the elective part of my program was a coaching program. And so it was like I got a 2-for-1. It was great.
Awesome. That's awesome. So you were doing all the IT, not fun stuff, right? Just technical training. Yeah. And okay, I get it. Yeah, I've been through some of that.
Yeah, not fun. I mean, I love the work. Sometimes the people, my teammates, they were great. Some of them were not so great. The customer, sometimes they were great. Sometimes they were not so great. And projects would start out doing well. Everybody's excited. But then little by little, you start to drag. They're doing the same thing. Then you realize the system that we're installing, we're configuring is just not up to par. Sales guys making his excuses about why things are the way they are. Then there's finger pointing going both ways. And the next thing, project gets put on hold until a solution gets found. And so now you go back to your home base, you're on the bench, hoping that you're going to get on another project. And I'm tired of this.
Yeah, that's tough. Good for you for shifting gears. So tell us what kind of coaching work you do now. The website is foxcoaching.com.
Fox Coaching, yeah. So I started in the leadership development, career development space. I do a lot of coaching for folks that are in entry-level management, middle management, and help them become better leaders, looking at their leadership behavior. And another facet of the work, and it's really taken off lately, is the whole career development space. I work with a couple of Fortune 500 companies that are committed to coaching their employees or their staff. And so I work a number of days a week providing career development coaching. So we work on resumes, we work on cover letters, we work on interviewing questions. How do you tell a story about the work that you've done, what you've accomplished? Help them with their LinkedIn profiles. That is also the other piece of my work, is because I'm an ex-IT guy, I've been using LinkedIn almost since it was first launched, so I'm pretty good at it. And so I get a lot of my clients who want to learn how to use LinkedIn more effectively, not only just having a profile, but how do I use LinkedIn to promote my business, the work I do, my brand? How do I use it to research other companies and other individuals? So those are the three facets of my career coaching work, or my coaching work.
Let's go down that LinkedIn path a little bit. That's becoming a pretty good tool for growing other businesses. I'm sure as a podcaster, I use LinkedIn all the time to find people and research people, and there's a lot of great information there.
Oh, most definitely. And I like to think of LinkedIn as a research tool. Right. In fact, Rick, when I first started Success Insight, which was the podcast, the parent podcast that I have, I was interviewing book authors. And I found them through LinkedIn. I literally searched for anybody that had the word author in their headline. And that's how I populated my calendar with my initial guests. So everything from zombie apocalypse to conspiracy to healthcare to children's book authors.
That's smart. Yeah, I use that, like I say, a lot just to find guests or do research on guests. So tell our listeners about some of the types of clients you work with these days. Are they still corporate, or are there a lot of individuals come to you? What's that like?
My big client is a corporate client. They're a Fortune 500. They're in the banking industry. And so, again, they're unique because they're totally committed to coaching and providing career development coaching to the associates. I get a lot of referrals via a nonprofit that I still do coaching work back in Chicago. And I've been with them since I first started coaching back in 2009. And people will come to me maybe after they've left this career development center. They've gotten the job. Maybe they need some additional help. They're struggling inside the organization. Maybe they want help with LinkedIn. And I get a lot of referrals that way. And it usually centers around, again, do they have the right sets of skills? Are they displaying the right behaviors? Are they promoting their brand and what they do, what their competencies are, as effectively as they can? And so those usually come via word of mouth. And so I get a lot of referrals that way. And that fills up a significant amount of time over and above the corporate client that I work with. That's
good. That's a great pipeline. That's nice.
Yeah.
And you also produce and host two podcasts, the Success Insights podcast, which you mentioned, and the Outdoor Adventure series. Tell us about, let's start with the Success Insights podcast. How did you get into podcasting, and how did that come to life?
That's actually an interesting question. I'm glad you asked it. Podcasting was a solution to my clients that I was working with on LinkedIn. And how you get to the end of the year, here comes New Year's, you have some goals that you have in mind. Maybe you want to write a blog, maybe you want to write a paper, write a book. And I had a number of LinkedIn clients. There was a business owner. One of them is a career development coach, leadership coach, much like myself. And they were wanting to promote their work in the business. And they talked about blogging, and they just, I struggle with it. I don't know what to say. And I had a radio show a year or two earlier. This only lasted for about a year. There was reasons why I walked away from that. But my idea for them was, why don't I interview you on Zoom like we would do today for work, or that's how I record my podcast. Why don't I interview you? We'll take that recording and we'll edit it and we'll turn that into a podcast episode. And then my business partner at the time would then take the transcript and he would write an article and some social quotes, create social quotes, a little one-page photos with some quote on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we would then post the article up onto LinkedIn as a blog post. I think it's I forget what they call it, like an article. That's what LinkedIn,
articles.
What LinkedIn call it.
Yep. Yeah. I've written a couple articles on there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's how the podcasting started, is we were just working with these clients on LinkedIn and helping them create the content. And then I realized I really enjoy this podcasting. And I think maybe there's an opportunity there. And I got together with one of my current business partners and another gentleman that I mastermind with. And we were toying around the idea of doing a show. And so we came up with the name eventually of Success Insight Podcast. And Success Insight was a play on words. So success is what it is, success. But insight is actually could be success is insight, or just the act of having insight into something that's going on in your life. And then I think there was somebody else was using the word success and insight. And so I just added the word podcast to it at the end. And that's how we got Success Insight Podcast. And as we were creating the episodes, it was becoming clear that I could categorize these episodes into a number of categories: coaching and consulting, mind, body, and soul, like a health and wellness focus. We do a Mindset Monday series I do it with a golf pro that's also a leadership coach. We have the author series, small business. And then when I moved to Las Vegas from Chicago, I'd wanted to get out into the outdoor space. And I then began interviewing people who did outdoor activities, everything from boondocking to camping, hiking. What kind of car do you buy? How do you do dark sky photography? And so the Outdoor Adventure series was another component of the Success Insight podcast. So Success Insights, I think it's February 2019. So we're in our fourth year, and I think we probably have well over 300 episodes on Success Insight.
Good for you. That's amazing.
Yeah. So that worked out really well. And then with Outdoor Adventure, we've got 58 episodes now of it. That's going to grow a lot over the rest of the year. But I realized that was a really important component of what I wanted to do. And so then we just spun it off from Success Insight.
I think I was on the Outdoor Adventure series. I forget what episode with you, but a while back, maybe last year. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I love the way that evolved, because I think I talk about podcasting. You and I talk about podcasting a lot and the value of podcasting. And the episode I dropped today was with another podcast. And I think there's just so many different ways that podcasts can benefit both individual entrepreneurs as well as businesses. And I think you've done a great job of expanding that. Have you helped other of your clients launch podcasts?
Yeah, we do that a lot. So I alluded to, I have a partner, and so we actively are marketing to associations and nonprofits. We're working with chambers of commerce to help them launch their podcast. And so we go in, we do the planning for them, we help them buy the equipment, set it up, teach them how to use it, and we do handhold until they get comfortable with their process. And if they need help with interviewing, then that's where I come in, because I'm the voice. But then we also have some other individuals that can step in and do some of the interviewing. But then my partner, he's responsible for all the back end production. And so I love, like you just said, a small business, and there's so much potential. I still think organizations, businesses, associations, they're still trying to figure out, how do I incorporate a podcast into my marketing stream? And I don't really think they're there yet, but I think it's becoming more and more important. And I think the work you do, the work I do, I think we're well positioned to be able to help those kinds of organizations.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I've helped a couple people launch podcasts, and I think for the outdoor folks, so let's go back up. I'll keep going on down this path, and I'll come back to the question I have. But I think for the outdoor folks, we're so active. We're out all the time. Just got back from the conference, and we were out doing stuff all the time. So because we're so active, we don't always have time to read blog posts or read the magazines or watch the videos. But man, I can be out on my mountain bike, I can be out on a hike, I can be out fishing, and I can listen to a podcast while I'm out doing my thing. And I think that's true for all of us these days, whether you're an outdoor business or a regular non-outdoor business in some other discipline. People can listen to podcasts 24/7, and that's the number one value right there, I believe.
Oh, yeah, and you get to select exactly what you want to listen to. There are thousands upon thousands of podcasts, and you well know many of them don't stick around after 10 to 12, 15 episodes. But if you find a show and you like the content, you like what the format is, whether it's a solo or an interview like you and I are doing, once you latch onto that, then it's just, you look forward to it.
Yeah,
When's the next episode? And I think there's also, like in the outdoor space, there's a way to leverage not only the activity, whether you're working with somebody that's writing an article, maybe you've got an online magazine or you still have the paper magazine. There's still ways to leverage the interview and the podcast, and that I think that's really where some of the opportunity you and I are going to have will come from.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think there's nothing like the human voice. It's one thing to read, but it's another thing to hear somebody talk about it, and their emotion and excitement and anticipation and all that stuff just leads into it. Yeah, the human voice it's your most valuable superpower, I keep saying. So.
Oh, yeah.
And
you got a good voice. And
thanks, same with you. You never realize that you had a good voice until you start podcasting, right? Have you done any work with any outdoor specific businesses?
Don't do a lot of businesses. If I do, it's not, you're very product oriented. And in fact, yesterday I did one that was product oriented, though I was interested in the stories, more interested in the customer stories. Why do people use your equipment? What are they getting out of it? And I will look at, for example, the Isaac Walton League. They were those six guys back in 95 years ago were sitting in Chicago on the back of a napkin said, we need the Outdoor Writers Association of America. So I would interview like the Isaac Walton League. They're celebrating 100 years of being in existence and their conservation stewardship. So I'm talking to them about their stories. The National Marine Sanctuaries, they presented to the OWAA back in April on one of our weekday calls, and the light bulb went off in my head. They're celebrating their 50th anniversary. Hey, let me do a podcast with these guys.
Perfect.
So those are the kinds of, that's where I tend to put most of my energy, is organizations telling their story, not necessarily whether they've got a product or a service.
Yeah, I'd lead more towards the outdoor product industry, where the gear is made and sold and bought. And
Sure.
And I share the stories of the individuals that make up that space. I have had, and I keep saying I'll talk to anybody in the outdoors. I had the National Wildlife Federation director on a few weeks ago, so I'll do a little bit of that. But you're right, it's more in the traditional outdoor industry space. Yeah.
And that's the beauty, Rick. And you and I each have our niches. I mean, we could look at each other at the OWAA conference and say, you're a competitor of mine. I'm not going to spend time with you. But it's very clear once we got to know each other, you have your niche. There's going to be some overlap between both of us. But you know something? It doesn't matter. There's right now, it's a very empty tent, and the tent's growing. And so I think lots of opportunities. And as a coach in the training, it's all about asking questions and listening and see or let the guests go where they want to go. You prepare your show notes. You sent me a questionnaire. I prepare mine. sometimes we don't get through all the show notes and the questions, and for me, sometimes we'll let the guests go where they want to go.
That's what I do. I have no limit. We talk until we're done talking, and it depends on how long we go. But yeah, you're right. I think I interviewed the episode that dropped today. We're recording this in June, sorry. And this guy he creates and hosts the Layers podcast, which is from Polar Tech. And we talked about podcasting. As you can imagine, we geeked out on that. We talked about the timing and the opportunity. And he and I, and it sounds like you feel the same, we're in the first inning of this game. The field is wide open. We have no idea where it's going to go, and you're spot on. You can have the same guest on 2, 3, 4 different podcasts, and it's going to be a different conversation on each show because we all produce different questions, and you never know. I think you and I both, the questions are just guidelines. Who knows where it's going to go? We might talk about something completely different that wasn't on the list because something came up in our conversation. So that's the beauty of it as well. I love it. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. As I was chatting with my guest yesterday, he's Signer, and I just for the life of me can't. Hunt Ready, that's the name of the company. They provide the framework for the gear that you wear when you're doing upland bird hunting.
Oh, okay.
And I was thinking as I was interviewing him, man, Rick needs to interview this guy. So
yeah,
a potential guest coming up.
There you go. We'll connect with him and get him on the show. So, and I love what you do with the Success Insights podcast, and I'm glad to hear that it's spun off into 2 different shows. Talk a little bit about how that spun off and what motivated that.
Again, so we were producing the episodes, and really, it was because of this move. So 2 years ago, I was living in Chicago. In fact, it was back in February 2020, right just before COVID became a thing in our lives. And I had taken this opportunity with a very large company to move out to Las Vegas to staff a call center for this bank. And the whole goal of providing on-site career development consulting or coaching. And when I came out here, I only had Success Insight, and I had the various series topics. And as I came out here and I started to explore, Outdoor Adventure Series was just, okay, I need a nice title. What's it going to be? And so again, I get together with my partner, my mastermind colleague. Again, the 3 of us get together all the time. And okay, I need another podcast that's going to be outdoor focused. And I needed to spin it off from Success Insight. I still needed to maintain that brand. I still have to do episodes. I have a website for it. It's on the social sites. It's on the social platforms and the other directories. But so I have brand specific banners for each one of the topics, careers or business. I still set up I have a recording schedule. I send people a calendar to pick a date, much like you do. And so I'm literally running this business of the podcast while I'm doing my other job, and it's continuing to grow. It prospers. I think our listenership is continuing to really spike, and it's a good entity. But then again, along came this outdoors topic, and I realized there's a lot more opportunity here. And so I then decided, let me start to create awareness about the outdoor space, but also let me also think about, I need to break it away so it's its own brand. And so now I manage the 2 brands, Success Insight and the Outdoor Adventure Series.
So it's a natural evolution, sounds like.
Oh, yeah. It was. I knew I needed to do it. I didn't want people to be confused by it. And the logo is very different. I think the only place where there's a little confusion is like on YouTube, because I reached a point on YouTube that I've got listeners, I've got a custom URL. I don't want to start to grow a whole other YouTube channel. It's just not worth it. So my banner speaks to both of them, but that's the only place where you still see the overlap. Everything else, the brand is totally separate.
Very cool. Yeah. Yeah. Early on, I had a little spinoff called the Waypoint, which I was giving business updates, outdoor industry business related updates, interviewing people that talked about sales related, marketing, specific business activities, but didn't seem to go anywhere. But yeah, it sounds like a natural evolution for you. That's great.
Yeah.
So how has your podcast helped your business? Have you gotten new clients? Sure, it's probably gotten you more followers and audience. That's got to be happening.
It's a good question. And yeah, I would say, yes, I've gotten clients. I still get a lot of LinkedIn clients as a result of Success Insight, even some of the Outdoor Adventure series, because like you do, where are your social sites? Where are you promoting your work? So I'm always looking at websites. I'm looking at Facebook pages and Instagram, and especially LinkedIn. So I might, after the call, make some suggestions, and it's, oh, by the way, I can help you with that. Or, oh, by the way, have you thought about taking your episodes and promoting them on your magazine or up on your website? You have a blog page. Why not add another page for podcast episodes? So I can help them with that. And so that's where the business comes from. It definitely happens in both brands, Success Insight and the Outdoor Adventure series. Is it bringing in the revenue that I would like? It could be a lot better, but it's growing. It's growing.
Do you have sponsors?
We have one sponsor we're just starting with. I've never really gone down that path, and maybe that's a conversation, some coaching you should be providing to me, is how'd you go about doing that? I do have a sponsor we're going to be starting with, coffee company. I've got some affiliate relationships. What we have done, though, is we still do long phone calls and long form emails and mail messages where we're going after and promoting the business side of podcasting. So helping like the chambers and the nonprofits. And so I look at the podcast more, not so much, oh, let me get a sponsor, but for me, Rick, it's credibility. So I can now say, yeah, I've got 305 Success Insight podcast episodes. I have 58 episodes of the Outdoor Adventure series. I'm doing a podcast series with the National Marine Sanctuaries. That's where that recognition, that credibility, that's when the opportunity, I think, comes about. So I can then easily go, not easily, but hopefully I can go into more readily an association, a nonprofit, and say, this is what we do. Have you thought about using podcasts as one of your marketing channels?
Yeah, and I think, like you mentioned earlier, I think it's still a bit of a sell to get people to recognize how the podcast can help their business and how a podcast can grow and give exposure and all kinds of things. So those things come up and evolve as in addition to you reach out and finding them, I'm sure.
Sure.
Yeah. We're going to take a little break and give some love to our sponsor, TeePublic. Hey, are you a t-shirt fanatic like me? I'm always on the lookout for new t-shirts. I have a collection of tees with funny sayings, inspiring graphics, or just something with a simple message. And I often find them at TeePublic has all kinds of apparel, including Outdoor Biz tees, hats, and more. Visit ricksays.com/teepublic and find something to add to your tee collection today. I know you have one. That's ricksays.com/teepublic. Now, back to the show. So we talked earlier about how podcasts can help businesses. Do you have three specific ways or three ways that you've directed a small business to specifically use a podcast? Or three ways podcasts can help small businesses off the top of your head?
There is. There's the first and foremost, it's podcasts, it's content. It's another form of content. It's perhaps a modality that you're not actually undertaking. Radio is expensive, TV is expensive, but you can create an audio file and put it onto a platform, whatever platform that might be. And if you've got the right SEO and hashtags, it can be shared around the world. So I look at it as a way to create content. You can use it to promote not only the internal workings of your business, so your employees, your staff become what I like to call your brand ambassadors. Then you can also use your podcast to share stories from your customers and clients. So if you bought a piece of equipment, the tent, the hiking poles, the rooftop tent, whatever you use for boondocking or photography, what are your customers saying about why they chose you over your competitor? Those stories are gold, and most folks that you would ask to participate in this, they're like excited to be able to share their story. And even the company themselves should be excited to share their story about their business and why they do what they do. This Hunt Ready organization that I chatted with yesterday, Heath Steiner, I actually met him through Edgar Castillo, who's an upland bird hunter. He was up in Vermont with us.
Oh.
Yeah, I had seen Edgar share something on LinkedIn, and I had made a comment to it. He said, liked it, and commented back. And I said, hey, you should be on my podcast. Let's talk about Hunt Ready and what you guys do. And so he can come on, talk about his work. The next logical place, and I don't think he's there yet, is you start to interview your customers who are buying your equipment. What are their stories? Why did they choose you? And the other thing is this podcasting, this recording, it's going to go everywhere. So whether it's Apple, Google, Amazon, Spotify, iHeartRadio, it's literally can be found anywhere around the world.
24/7.
And and this, like with the chamber that I work with here in Nevada, they actually, as a result, I was helping them record some little mini podcasts. They have, every year they do a spring jamboree. And so the CEO of the chamber is off doing her work. And so I was basically interviewing people who had attended this event. She ended up with somebody from Ireland reaching out to her.
Yeah. You never know.
So you just never know where people are going to pick up on this episode. And it was wonderful. So maybe these folks are now going to come to Nevada. They're going to come visit Hoover Dam. Hopefully they'll still see Lake Mead if it's still there. But Boulder City is this cute little town.
Yeah, it's a great town.
And come to Vegas, do your gambling stuff. But now these folks from Ireland know that 45 minutes away, 30 minutes away is Boulder City. Can't beat that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, too, for small businesses, you can also use your employees and give them exposure and let them share the story of your business, because I think it's a great way to let the world know a little bit of how you cook the soup in your business. There's so many ways. Yeah, it's amazing.
Oh, very much. And the words I use is brand ambassador. Your employees are your brand ambassadors.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What part of podcasting do you love the most? Got to be interviewing. Sounds like
you hit it right on the nail on the head. I love interviewing, and I don't mind the prep work because and I think preparation is important. You gave me, and I had a publicist who I had interviewed one of her clients, and I was actually introduced by somebody else that I knew, and she had commented back, I really love the preparation, and I like that you did your research. So I like the research, but man, if I get into the questions and just having the conversation, and I always equate it, Rick, it's like having a conversation with a friend over an adult beverage that you haven't seen in 15 years.
Yep.
That's what the style of my podcast. And just asking questions and listening, and again, not me directing where this conversation goes, unless, of course, they're paying us to do that, but letting it go organically where it needs to go.
Yeah, I love it. I'm totally with you. I think that's the interview. And I don't know about you, but it took me, I did a little research on interviewing and process just to get my shtick down. But once I think you do it, and like you and I, we come from a business background, so I think we're used to meeting with people and asking questions, and we're both naturally curious, so that just helps.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any shows in the queue you can talk about? Anything coming up that you're excited about?
The big one, it's actually first episode is going to get published tomorrow, is the National Marine Sanctuaries. They are
that sounds pretty exciting.
Oh, man, this was like right place at the right time. This was the National Marine Sanctuaries. They are the nautical version of our national parks, and they are located throughout our territorial waters. They are part of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, and they're celebrating their 50-year anniversary. So I reached out to the communications director, who was on this call with us back in April, and I said, hey, Vernon, what do you think about having you guys on the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast? Not just one episode, but what if we could interview multiple team members from the National Marine Sanctuaries, maybe a sanctuary manager, maybe somebody in marketing, one of the scientists. And so we are literally queuing up. I think at the end, before the end of the year, 50-year anniversary, we're going to probably have somewhere between 7 and 10 interviews.
Nice.
And first one gets launched tomorrow on the Outdoor Adventure Series website. There's another one in the queue. I'm just working through the editing of that right now. But I've got another 3 folks who are scheduled. And it's really funny. You'll love this. Up in Michigan, where I grew up in the Detroit suburbs, but my brother-in-law grew up in Alpena, Michigan, and that's right off Lake Huron. And it's like a shipwreck site. Well, sites are out there, very big for scuba divers. And the Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary is up there. And I joked with Vern, I said, I want to interview the guy who manages that sanctuary. And I thought, how cool would that be? Is I'll let my brother-in-law know that, guess where I'm interviewing? Yeah, I would even go up there and do a face-to-face interview.
That'd be very fun.
But it's going to be cool. The one we did recently was Flower Garden Banks, which is down in the Gulf of Mexico.
Wow.
And so that'll be the next episode. And then there's 3 or more that are queued up in the calendar.
What a cool idea.
So that's exciting.
Yeah, very exciting. Yeah. We'll link to that in the show notes, and I'll be sure and listen to that tomorrow. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any podcasts in your brain that you'd like to see produced? Any ideas for folks out there?
God, I was thinking about this. I just think if you are a part of an association or a nonprofit, and I think about at the Outdoor Writers Association, our conference, there were folks, either they were attending the event or they had a table, and they all represent the tourist boards. So all of these tourist boards should have a podcast. And I think if I'm the director of one of these entities, how can I get the word out about Beaumont, Texas, about Gulf Shores, about the Florida Keys, and even, for example, Alpena, Michigan, they were struggling financially because their paper mill closed. And again, very popular with the outdoor fishermen, anglers, and scuba divers. But now all of a sudden, this National Marine Sanctuary is on the map. So I know there's a tourist bureau in Alpena, Michigan. Mm-hmm. And those are the ones where if they're not starting it, then they should be.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. Yeah. I'm working with a couple of them trying to create Outdoor Biz Podcast episodes for some of the folks that they represent. So yeah, but they could definitely do their own. And there's so many ideas like that, whether it's a tourism board or a community here in Bishop, the tourism folks here. I mean, there's so many things you could do. Great suggestion.
And our topic is so broad.
Yeah.
The outdoor space, and even for the aha moment from Casper was the whole environmental conservation stewardship angle. And because would it be nice to interview somebody who has the latest, greatest fly fishing rod? Okay, yeah, it would be nice. But a lot of other folks are doing that, whether you're Ducks Unlimited, whether you are, the other sports, whatever, the elk, the guys from the Elk Found organization.
Yep.
But if you focus on, say, one topic that's big enough and people are doing it throughout the country, that could be a very strong niche. So I think there's even an opportunity, even within our space, that we can continue to niche down.
Oh, I totally agree. You could get into if you're a hunt fish guy and you like guns, you can just do a gun podcast and talk about all the different kinds of shotguns alone, the shotgun podcast. Lifetime worth of content right there. So no, I think you're spot on. Yeah. How did you connect with the Outdoor Writers Association?
Yeah, I have a friend. In fact, I met her via LinkedIn because again, with my mastermind buddies, I was looking to find publicists that lived in the Chicagoland area that had already. My thought was we could help do virtual book tours using the podcast format. And so I met a publicist. She was up on the North Shore. And, I think I reached out to maybe 3 or 4 of them. Linda was the only one that replied back. And so she and I became friends. And she would send me her clients, and these are all book authors, a lot of different topics, genres, and I would interview them for her on her podcast. Occasionally, I would have my own guest, and I would refer business back to her. Maybe somebody wrote a book, and they didn't really have a good angle on how to market it, and that's where folks like Linda come in. Then this opportunity came up in Las Vegas, and I started doing the outdoor work, and Linda and I probably chat maybe once a month. And she said, Howard, I'm a member of, what was it, the Wisconsin Outdoor Communicators Association, and I'm a member of the Outdoor Writers Association of America. You should check them out. In fact, you should reach out to Ches Chezik, and that's how this all came about with the OWA.
So was the New England, Vermont conference your first conference?
That was my first conference.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Me too. Interesting. Yeah, it's a great group, isn't it?
What I like about the group is everybody is helpful. They're nice, they're genuine, and they're helpful. And I didn't feel like there is, sometimes you go to a conference and there's an agenda. They do their presentations and they are trying to sell and market. And I know we're subtly marketing who we do, what we are and what we do.
Yeah.
But here it's all very genuine. And I really loved interviewing the folks or having conversations. I did recognize, Rick, that members of this organization were potential guests.
Yeah.
And that for me was a way to have really good quality episodes on the outdoor adventure series.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that was one of the original reasons why I did join the organization. It's because of the podcast and because of potential guests.
Yeah, it's a great group. I've known Ches since he was with the Adventure Travel Trade Association years ago. Yeah, and he moved over to here, and it just seemed like a natural fit for me, obviously.
So that's how you came to know them, through Ches.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of them. And for me, the podcasting thing, I didn't have very many roles in my outdoor career that interacted with media. I was always a sales guy or a product guy, and once in a while I'd talk to media at a trade show, but I still don't have all the insights as to how it works. But once I started the podcast and became a part of the media, Ches reached out, a couple other people's reached out. And so that's been a whole nother learning experience for me in relating to the outdoor space. And I love it. I think it's super fun, unlimited amount of folks, like you say, for guests, for all kinds of things to work with. So it's fantastic. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What outdoor activities do you participate in?
Coming out to Vegas, it had to be the stars. I wanted to get out to the desert, and learning how to do dark sky photography, the Milky Way, that was first and foremost what I really wanted to dive into. And I was fortunate there was a groups out here. There's a digital, the astronomy group, but there was also a digital photography group for a little while. They've shut down, but a couple of the members continue to get together and go out, and I would go out with them. And we still had to be separated.
Yeah,
however,
distance, right?
Yeah, but we could still go out to Lake Mead, Mojave National Preserve, Death Valley, Rhyolite, which is a ghost town up about an hour and a half north of Vegas.
That's up by Death Valley.
Still get outside. Yeah. And so the photography, boondocking, or car camping. So I've slept in my car. I don't know if I want to do it forever, but I can do it. And I'm good for a night, maybe 2 nights at the most, but I like that. And I like hiking. I like going on day hikes. I'm not interested in climbing over boulders and traversing rocky cliffs, things like that. But if I can get out and do a hike, I've got my camera strapped with me and my hiking poles and water, and I can go off and do a couple-hour hike, maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 miles at the most, depending on the weather. And I'm a happy guy, and I've got some nice pictures.
Yeah,
so I love it.
Yeah, you got a lot of great places to explore around outside of Vegas too. That's the surrounding area. Unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah. Do you have any suggestions or advice for folks wanting to get into podcasting or coaching, maybe?
For both of them, I would say it's easier to get into podcasting personally. Coaching is becoming so saturated. And if you do it, I would want to say you got to go in with your eyes wide open. All right. And you have to know what you're getting yourself into and do your research. How are you going to podcast? Who are your guests? What topic do you want to produce this podcast under? The same thing with coaching. Why do you want to be a coach? Why do you want to make this investment? And especially in coaching, there's such a saturation. And every time you turn around, there's some new coaching program that is getting launched. And there's just a lot of competition. And would I still make the same decision back when I did? I don't know. I really don't. But it was the right decision at the moment because I didn't want to die alone in a hotel room as an IT consultant. But it's a great profession, but you have to know what you're getting yourself into. At least with the podcasting, there's a saying one of my mentors would share is build the airplane as you fly it. And if you want to get into podcasting, okay, do it. You and I can get somebody in a day and get them up and running and launched on a podcast. What you do with that's entirely different. And you have to know what you're getting yourselves into, the work that's involved. And it is work. It's not just having a conversation like you and I are having right now and it's done. There's some post work, there's the pre-work, and you have to know what you're getting yourselves into both ways.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I have my podcast coaching program. I spend a lot of time on the front side talking about all those things because I think we were talking before I hit the record button about, I think the average number of episodes of all the podcasts that have ever been produced is 8. And people get started, they get excited about the equipment or whatever, and then they just fade away. So, no, you're spot on. You just got to do a lot of homework for both of those things. I would imagine the same for coaching because if you get excited, start coaching, and then I'm bored with this, that's not good for the.
That's a one heck of an investment there. Let me tell you, if you really go down that path with podcasting, a lot of people want to be, and there's the big folks that are getting paid multi-millions of dollars to be a podcast.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't want to be a talking head. Okay. I don't want to sit up and have 3 hours just talking about a topic. I know what I'm good at. I know what I want to do. But I also know something. It's going to take time to grow this and build the traction. And for me, Rick, it's credibility. That's what I look at it. If I build credibility, then I could start to create opportunities because of that credibility. I know I'm not going to get Nike or Starbucks or the latest Peak Design to sponsor my podcast, okay? Unless, granted, I may have to pitch them, and I probably should, but it's not going to happen overnight. And people have to realize you're not going to become the next millionaire podcaster overnight. And don't get me started like on the news, the NPRs, the CBSs, the CNNs, et cetera. They've already have the built-in bandwidth to create the podcast. All they're doing is reusing what they already create.
Repurposing content, exactly. Yeah,
so go in with your eyes wide open.
Yeah, love it. What's your favorite piece of outdoor gear under $100?
Does it have to be just one?
Nope. You can't do 10, but
I'll tell you, it's a combination of 3, and I've alluded to it. When I go hiking, and I always have my cameras with me, and I like birding, and so it is a very large lens. There is a camera strap. It's produced by a company called Peak Design, and they produce a lot of other accessories and gear, tripods, things like that. But they have a strap that connects to your camera, and it allows you to put it around your shoulder, okay? So it's just hanging off the side of your body. And so that makes the camera very accessible for me as I'm hiking. I've learned because of my age, I don't go anywhere without my trekking poles. So a good set of carbon fiber trekking poles, that's $60. This camera straps by Peak Design are about $70. And then the other one, it hangs off the other side of my shoulder, is like a 2-liter Hydro Pack. So it's a water bottle that collapses. And depending on where you're at, you can connect a filter to it. But I know for that 1 hour, 2 hour, light to moderate hike, that's all I need is the water bottle, my trekking poles, and my camera.
Perfect. Shout out to Peter Darian, founder of Peak Design. You got a product ambassador right here, Peter. So I have to get you on that podcast too.
I love that. So it sounds you know him. I may have to reach out to him.
I've met him. He came in. Those guys came in when they were starting Peak Design. I was with Low Pro, and they came in and showed us some of the early designs and stuff. And they just, great products. They've evolved. They're doing a great job. And I saw Peter last year at the outdoor show, and we talked about getting on the podcast. So I'll reach out to him, and we'll both interview him.
There you go. We should tag team that interview.
Maybe we'll do it. Yeah, maybe we'll do a 2-on-1 or something, or maybe get some of his other designers. That'd be a fun multi-person conversation. That'd be cool. We'll do that. Yeah,
there you go. Yeah. Love it.
Awesome. How about some of your favorite books? Are you a big reader? I'm sure you are.
I am. Sometimes will read the books of the guests that I am going to interview. So I interviewed a gentleman recently, Ethan Galogli, and he wrote a book. It was fiction, but there were some autobiographical references within it. It was called The Trail, about the John Muir Trail. Hiking it, it was probably a 21-day hike, which I couldn't do a 21-day hike. You would find me, I would be buried up on the hill somewhere. But I'm good with 3 miles, almost flat. But that was a good book, and so I will read books like that if I find they're interesting and I have the time. I just don't have a lot of time to read. My coaching books, though, I use a lot because a part of my career development coaching, like the Leadership Challenge by James Kouzes and Barry Posner. So what are the optimal leadership behaviors that somebody should be putting into practice so others will observe them and think of them as leaders? So that's an important book. Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. So I use a metaphor about getting into the arena. And who cares if you get bloody, you're sore, and you're dirty? At least you got into the arena and tried it out. And there's the people who complain and never got into the arena. Those are the ones that they don't matter because they never tried it. And the last one is just, in fact, I was just chatting with a client of mine about it, called Taming Your Gremlin. So anytime when you have this negative self-talk, like you and I, for example, why am I doing this podcasting? What am I getting out of this? This is not worth it. That's your gremlin talking, okay? And you have to know when that gremlin is awake and he's sitting on your shoulder, and he's trying to protect you, but you have to recognize this negative self-talk is not doing you any good. And sometimes you just need to be reminded of it.
Love it. Love those three. We'll link to those in the show notes. So I'll pick up that gremlin one. He's on my shoulder all the time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. As we wrap up here, is there anything else you'd like to say or ask of our listeners?
I would just say, and I say this because I love metaphors, and I say this because of being here in Nevada. We have Red Rock Conservation Area nearby, and they have this 12, 13-mile scenic route. And it's hilly. If I was biking, it would be a hard route. But if you're in a car, you can do easy to do. But the real joy and challenge and enlightenment, insight comes from getting off the scenic route. Park off the trails and go walk a trail. See what's out there. Challenge yourself. And because in this day and age, we can get very comfortable in our lives, what we do, what we think we're comfortable with, and really not stretching ourselves to go beyond what we thought was possible. So I like to say to my clients, and I would say to my listeners as well, is get off the scenic route. See what else is out there.
Love it. That's perfect. Good way to wrap up. Where can people find you if they'd like to follow up?
The best places are my coaching website. It probably needs a little refreshing, but it's still pretty valid, foxcoaching.com. And then successinsightpodcast.com is where you will find those episodes, and you can link to any of the directories. You can contact us there. And then the outdooradventureseries.com. That's our Outdoor Adventure Series website. So those are the three best places. You can find me on LinkedIn at Fox Coaching Inc. I'm there and very well branded, not only the coaching practice, but also the outdoor adventure and the Success Insight podcast.
Very cool. Well. Very cool. We'll link to all that stuff in the show notes. Howard, it's been great talking to you as usual. We got to do this more often.
I think so. I think we need to find a way to do some work together.
I'm with you. Yep, I'm with you. I will follow up, and thanks for coming on the show.
You got it. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. We'll talk later.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Be sure to visit our website, theoutdoorbizpodcast.com, where you'll find show notes with links to everything we talked about and more. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or spread the word and tell a friend about the show. That would really help us out too. Be sure to tune in every week. And thanks again for listening to the Outdoor Biz Podcast with Rick Sayes.